Mind your health.
You got to mind your health.
Mind your health.
Treat yourself. You got to mind your health.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Mind Your Health. Today we're joined by Dr. Debi Lynes, and today's topic is substance abuse, something we both know a lot about.
Do we, though?
Yeah.
I love chatting about it.
Personal experience.
No, perish the thought.
Yes.
Well, I think that the topic about addiction and substances has taken a big shift. I think in today's world, we talk a lot less about the word addiction and we talk about substance use, abuse, and dependence. And even when we're talking about what addictions are, what substance use, abuse, and dependence is, there are different kinds. There's a process addiction, which is more like gambling, pornography, things like that, shopping. Okay. And then we talk about the substances. And substances, David, are kind of interesting because they include things like pizza, sugar. Okay. I know.
Different food groups.
Exactly.
Exactly.
As well as things like opioids. We hear a lot about the opioid crisis. Alcohol, of course, marijuana, of course, and nicotine, and all the other various substances that are out there. What's really interesting is many people today consider substance use, abuse, and dependence as a maladaptive learned habit.
So you don't believe that people are born with a predisposition to abusing substances?
The answer to that is yes. Some people in some circumstances are predisposed to abusing substances. Okay, by it's biological, psychological, and environmental. All three of those. Okay, you can't have one without the other. So everything is really a triad. So if there was a history of anxiety, depression, addiction, all of those things, you may have a genetic predisposition to it, but we don't know what we don't know. And I think, and that's the key to all of this. And as far as addiction or substance abuse goes, what does that even look like? How do we even describe that? In today's world, substance use, abuse, or dependence is what you're doing negatively impacting your quality of life. If it's not, no problem. And so it's less about quality. And I know you're like,
Yeah. So there's no nothing happened in a vacuum, right? So I hear from people that, well, I'm in my own house, I can do whatever I want. Yeah, I understand that. But then when you go to the grocery store, you're out on the road. My wife and children and grandchildren are out on the road. I mean, it's...
Well, and that is potential negative impact. I mean, you have to really consider that. One of the things that's really interesting, in my opinion, about substance use and abuse, and you ask how it happens, and you'll love this. This is right down your alley. So we all get little hits of dopamine. Dopamine is a little neurochemical, right? And it motivates you. It gives you pleasure. It gives you reward. It gives you reinforcement. But here's the thing. Our brain doesn't know if what is giving us that pleasure or pain is good for us or not. So let's say I get up in the morning and I hug my husband and I give him a kiss and I pet the dog and I get, boop, a little hit of dopamine. And all through my day, boop, I get a little hit of dopamine. I go out in the sun, boop, I see a client, boop, I eat a yummy bagel, boop. And we want little hits of dopamine all day, okay? So, next day, I have a mimosa, because it's Sunday and I can have a date with brunch. And I get a little hit of dopamine, have a mimosa, get a little bit bigger hit of dopamine. And I go through my day. Monday comes, I'm like, oof, you know what? I'm kind of feeling draggy. I'm going to have another mimosa. Okay? Never, ever do people intend to be dependent on a substance. That's not what happens. Okay? But again, remembering that our brain, in this part of our brain, it doesn't recognize what kind of dopamine we're getting. It just knows if it gets a hit. Okay? And so pretty soon, I can't function without my mimosa or my hit of dopamine. And that's where this whole thing gets messy and tricky. And everything, we know different levels of dopamine. We know that a cheeseburger, for many people, gets a bigger hit of dopamine than hugging your husband. Meth,
Methamphetamine.
yeah, meth, cocaine, way bigger hit. And so your brain just sort of takes over, throws you offline. And pretty soon, you having control of substances is out the window. And the substance has control of you.
I saw myself. A good friend of mine had hurt his back. He had back surgery. Came to me. He had a very powerful pain reliever. And he said, look, I don't want to get hooked on these things. I'm like, no, it's okay. You just had surgery. Take them. I said, only take them was needed. Take them only as direct and all that kind of stuff. It was like, sure enough, grab him in a month. He was addicted and spiraled downhill.
It's really interesting, and pain is a really interesting topic when we talk about substance abuse or substance dependence, because up until the 70s, and you know this, we've talked about this, I think, before, pain was not really recognized as a bad thing. Mm-hmm. Pain was a symptom that said, either you're hurt, you're fallen, you're recovering from surgery, and you need to take it easy. You had a hysterectomy, you had a hip replacement, you're in pain. Calm down. We're going to give you some analgesics to kind of settle you down, okay? Because initially that pain is tough, but we're going to quickly wean you off of that so that you can still recognize your capabilities. So if I still have a little pain, maybe I shouldn't go walk around the block. How is that shifted even in...
So it's funny how you said that. So it's been interesting to see that the insurance companies have a lot to do with that. So now many people that have had, for some reason or another, an injury, and they come to me and get a pain prescription, the insurance company will only limit you to a 7-day supply.
Oh, is that what it is now?
Yeah. Now you can go more, but you new prescription and the whole bit, but they're going to limit you to 7 days. Oh. So when you think about it, it was very arbitrary. You go, hey, doc, my back's killing me. Well, here's a prescription for 100, 200, whatever it is. So, and nothing as a medical field, but it was arbitrary. Well, now those rules are much tighter.
Interesting.
And so the insurance companies know, look, we get these people on pain medicines. It's very difficult to get them
off. Right. And again, I don't know what the real answer is, because some people really have no problem.
Well, that was my point. Why? So you give me 100 pain pills, I'm probably going to end up throwing 98 of them away. Mm-hmm. Why does my friend all of a sudden, had back surgery and now he's got a dependency problem?
Well, let's go back to that. And I think, again, we look at history. From a biological point of view, is he predisposed to something? Okay. We look at him psychologically. What's his pain tolerance? What's his pain threshold? What does he do? Introvert, extrovert? Does he have a social system? Is he going back to work? All of those things need to be taken into consideration. And then third, what's the environment? Tell me a little bit about him.
Yeah, I think that was part of the key. Middle of divorce and, stressful life, stressful job. It was just a whole package.
And, we could talk about this forever. And it's an amazingly interesting topic when we talk about use, abuse, and dependence. And what you haven't heard me say at all in this discussion is abstinence. In today's world, nothing has to be all or nothing. Okay. We support, it's called harm reduction and seeking safety. And many people can do that. I can't tell my 17-year-old kid that I'm seeing, you will never be able to have a glass of champagne at your wedding. They're going to be like, well, no, I'm not going to be sober then. But here's what's interesting, guys. The opposite of sober, okay, is not happiness. What is the opposite of sobriety?
Drunkenness?
The opposite of sobriety is connection. Because people who do have dependence on substances aren't connected to their families. They're not connected to their communities. Okay? There's a lot of secrets. And so, again, kind of shifting the mindset around what sobriety really looks like. Sobriety looks less about abstinence and it looks more about being connected. So on that note, thank you for having me on Mind Your
You're
Health
welcome.
podcast. I appreciate it.
And please, I tell you, before we go, there's lots of resources on substance abuse.
There really are.
You need to, I hate to say it, but get on the internet, find help. There's people that want to help you. You can overcome this.
I appreciate it.
You bet.
Mind your health, mind your health, mind your health, mind your health.